I'm now going to talk about the Native American Holocaust Museum. I started this museum to document, study, and interpret Native American Holocaust history. It serves as a memorial to Native American men, women, and children that died or suffered or are suffering as a result of the Native American Holocaust. I define the Native American Holocaust as the systematic persecution and annihilation of Native American peoples through the colonization and assimilation process and invasion of our personal and tribal boundaries even after our death. The museum's primary mission is to advance and share the experience and knowledge of what this horror has meant for Native peoples today, to preserve the memory of those who died or suffered, to offer comfort, support, encouragement, and understanding, and to encourage its visitors to reflect upon the need for dignity of and respect among all peoples. Millions of people indigenous to the borders of the United States of America and Canada died in the formation of these two countries. There were approximately 250,000 Native Americans alive in the year 1900. Today in the United States alone, there are over 7.5 million Native American peoples of over 500 federally recognized tribes. The remaining indigenous nations are reestablishing themselves through education, economic development, and the exploration of what it means to be sovereign nations. One fundamental campaign is reclaiming our identity. The constant objectification and dehumanization Native Americans suffer daily through the ridicule and caricaturing of our culture and our people is part of the continuing Holocaust. The museum site is dedicated to ending the oppressive regime of silence. Silence due to fear. Fear for our continued individual and group survival. Our desire to work, live, and raise our families can no longer be an impediment to our call for fundamental human decency. Survival without dignity is not life. We are not expendable. The museum is to comfort and help Native American peoples heal from the Holocaust experience so they can get on with their lives. Many non-Native peoples are not ready to recognize the impact of racism or silence in the face of physical and cultural genocide, prejudice, and present and historical racism. They, too, are severely affected, though, by the witnessing of the Holocaust and the trauma experienced by Native peoples. We have all been hurt. It is time for Native peoples to have a museum dedicated to healing, a refuge, a sanctuary, a place of tolerance, understanding, unconditional love, encouragement, and peace. We also need a safe haven from the constant free-floating anxiety we endure as a result of our fear of racism, never knowing when or from where it will strike, whose sole purpose is to keep us on edge, to manipulate our control on our minds, our hearts, our will, and our lives. The museum will support and host many programs. Number one, ending the distribution of monies by the federal government to states with the expectation and requirement that a portion of those monies be spent on Indian tribes in the state and urban Indians. It is uncertain which states are not passing such monies on to Indian tribes in the state and urban Indian health clinics. In Colorado, there was no method or formula to guide the distribution process, and counties were concerned that if distribution was made to Indian tribes in the state and urban Indian health clinics, it would reduce the amount the counties in the state of Colorado would receive. The United States Health and Human Services Tribal Advisory Committee expressed its concern on this matter as well. It constitutes a breach of the fiduciary duty to the United States Health and Human Services by not seeing that the monies are being appropriately used by the state for Indian tribes in the state and urban Indian health clinics. The sad thing is the monies are in areas most critical to tribes and urban Indians for diabetes, alcoholism, substance abuse, and other social problems. The museum also supports the Indian Child Welfare Act, the protection of Native American sacred sites, tribal employment rights ordinances, and market value consideration for tribal and Indian LRT resources. The museum also provides resources including directories for economic development, education, health, and a general list including congressional committees, federal agencies, and the Native American caucus of state legislatures and state Indian commissions. Native American economic development information, including PowerPoint business seminars for forming, developing, and growing small businesses, including small business administration, government contracting, federal employment and labor laws, contract terminology, and information on marketing. There is Native American education information, including Indian education curriculum materials and alternative licensure program requirements for persons interested in becoming teachers that do not have an education degree. Native American law. There is key information by Kevin Gover, the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, statement on the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There are mascot articles. There is the Civil Rights Commission statement on Indian mascots. There is the text of the Senate Resolution Apology to Native Peoples, understanding and working with students and adults from poverty, and information on white privilege. The museum also has real estate and Native American housing program information, the Indian Home Loan Guarantee Program information, and information on the Housing and Urban Development Office of Native American Programs. The museum has energy information on oil and gas and shale, the Bakken Formation, ProPublica, and articles from High Country on shale, coal, and renewable energy. There are perspectives on contemporary Native American issues, on cultural racism, notes on Navajo history, papers on El Inca Garcilaso de la Vega and El Cuarto Centenario. There is a survey on issues such as colonial trauma, the global status of women, child abuse, teenage pregnancies, threatened peoples, media stereotyping, poverty, miseducation, unemployment, underemployment, and misemployment, institutional racism, hate crimes, language variation, and cultural stereotyping, information on health disparities, gangs, crime, disparate incarceration, suicide, substance abuse and mental illness, violence by intimates and divorce, and genocide. The museum has colonial texts by Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortez, and Bartolome de las Casas. It has Native American art and Native American videos. Most importantly, the museum desires that there be a Native American Holocaust Memorial Day. It's a day that will be set aside for remembering the victims of the Native American Holocaust and for encouraging tolerance, understanding, and love among all peoples. It is also to remind us of the consequences of silence in the face of prejudice and racism. Those who witness the abuse of Native peoples suffer trauma as profound as the victim of the abuse. It is this knowledge that will help us put an end to prejudice and racism. I wrote the Native American Holocaust Honor Song in 2004. I know that because I believe in synchronicity, that it will eventually be placed to music and sung. We survived or we died. In battle, in massacres, in prisoner of war camps, in forced marches, in cruel removal, in boarding schools, in relocation to cities, in termination of our tribes, in jails, in shame and despair, our deities mocked. We survived or we died. We survived or we died, our heroism forgotten, in lives shattered by colonialism, stifled by oppression, shamed by assimilation, silenced by subjection. We survived or we died. We survived or we died, our valor overlooked, and lives filled with hatred, bigotry, apathy, oblivion. We survived or we died. We survived or we died, our courage dismissed, unable to mourn the loss of lives, land and resources, culture, our continuing genocide. We survived or we died. We survived or we died, our strength ignored. We are voices out of the darkness. We are voices of honor. We are voices of truth. We are voices of life. We are voices of hope. Hear our pain. Hear our suffering. Hear our anguish. Hear our despair. In a perpetual state of grief, we survived or we died. I would like to see the President of the United States of America proclaim the Native American Holocaust Memorial Day by executive order. The Native American Holocaust Memorial Day will serve as a memorial to Native American men, women, and children that died or suffered or are suffering as a result of the Native American Holocaust. I define the Native American Holocaust as the systematic persecution and annihilation of Native American peoples through the colonization and assimilation process. I would also like to see the President of the United States of America issue an executive order ending the use of Native American mascots. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights called for an end to the use of Native American images and team names by non-Native schools. I would like to see it further extended to include non-Native entities, including but not limited to institutions of higher learning, professional and non-professional sports teams, advertising agencies, corporations, and other business and legal entities that receive federal funding. In the indigenous world, Native American elders are the precious link that keep our history alive for our children. Without them, their testimony and their artifacts, Native and other peoples lose the opportunity for education and enrichment. Elders deserve a high degree of respect and care on our part, and for this reason, The Elder Respect Program was established, supporting intergenerational leadership and engaging in those activities that ensure the Native American community that their lives are honored, commensurate with the enormity and gravity of the tragedy of the Native American Holocaust. My son, when he was in Canyon de Chelly on the Navajo Nation, wrote this poem for me. I could hear the echoes of my running feet ricocheting off the canyon walls. A cold spring morning, chilling my skin and making my nose run. Stillness like no other calm I've ever experienced. I wanted to live here 1,000 years ago. I wanted to live here before anyone knew what Indian land meant. So I took a piece of the earth and I carried it about on my travels, a piece of holy red earth, a tangible reminder of where I came from and where I could always go, a sense of calm that no one can ever take away, a sense of belonging to the people. I attended a meeting of the New Mexico Indian Pueblo governors with the delegation from Spain, which included the Vice President of Spain and other dignitaries. It was to be a re-encounter and reconciliation between Spain and the sovereign Pueblo nations, a recognition of the suffering endured by Pueblo natives during the conquest, the promise of a new relationship based on respect, compassion, equality, and understanding, a reconciliation which would be based on the exchange of communication technology, commerce, education, and culture. I am proud that the Navajo Nation Supreme Court still believes in basing their judicial system on the laws, the culture, and the value system of the Navajo people, which has their genesis in the journey of the Dene from time immemorial to the emergence into this world. I also want to emphasize the need for justice that is necessary, which was not present in the U.S. versus Navajo Nation coal leasing cases. Peabody Coal Company, at the direction of Southern California Edison, retained Stanley W. Hewlett, a close friend and business associate of Secretary of the Interior Hodel, to intercede directly with Secretary Hodel to set aside the 20% coal royalty adjustment and require the Navajo Nation to negotiate a deal with Peabody. I thought of Changing Woman, who is rejuvenated every spring after the barrenness of winter, interlocked in the double-sided dance of the creation and the illusory destruction of life. There was no destruction, only a return to the womb of the earth, to engage in yet another transformation of form, all to the purpose of the sustenance of life. I thought of Spider-Woman weaving the silky, fragile web of the universe, maintaining its harmony, anchoring her web soundly below the forest humus buried beneath the snowdrifts. I thought of the 12 deities of the Navajo, Mother Earth and Father Sky, dusk and dawn, sun and moon, talking God and call God, male and female corn, pollen boy and corn beetle girl, who come to our aid unasked. How could they understand the Native American Holocaust? They came from a world of beauty and harmony. I needed a deity that could understand me and the suffering endured by Native peoples as a result of colonization and assimilation and our continuing genocide. Out of this need came Holocaust Woman. I told her my story and she understood. My family's experience was the microcosm of the Native Holocaust. I was the witness and the evidence of the Native Holocaust. Holocaust Woman would support me in my truth. Neither of us had an answer for what had happened. I only hoped that by coming forward I could be of service. When I made Holocaust Woman, I used fabric that was designed by an Oklahoma Indian woman whose name I do not know. She was at the quilt festival in Houston selling her fabric, and she wanted Native peoples to have quality calico so that they could create their art. And she used designs from her cultural experience. She used designs of women along the Trail of Tears, of arrows, of feathers, of the sacred medicine wheel. And so I made Holocaust Woman from this fabric.